I'm delighted that we are joined today by William Shawcross, the chairman of the Charity Commission, who is giving us our keynote speech. William joined the Commission as chair in October 2012 and has a broad charity sector experience, particularly in the field of human rights and international aid. Previously, he's been involved in the International Crisis Group. He was a member of the Council of the Disasters Emergency Committee and was chairman of the Article 19 Committee, which dealt with the Centre for International Censorship. He is a prolific writer, in particular in the work of aid agencies and international organisations. He's also written a number of books, including the official biography of the Queen Mother and the BBC television series Monarchy. As I say, I'm delighted that, William, you are able to be with us today, and thank you very much for finding the time in your busy schedule to deliver our keynote address. So, William, over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here with you all. It's a great honour to speak to you and a great pleasure to be in Southampton. It's marvellous to see so many people from so many different charities who are clearly keen to engage with the rather difficult issues of today, which sometimes for charities seem to me to be more difficult than they should be. And for all of you, I'm sure, want to run charities more efficiently. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the work of the Charity Commission, which, as you say, I've been running since September 2012, and the government, for my sins, has just reappointed me for another 3 years. My wife wasn't very pleased with this. My wife did say, as you just heard, I've spent a lot of time in my life writing books, and my wife said when I got this job, this is the first proper job you've ever had. And she thought that was 3 years would have been long enough. Anyway, there we are. There are about 400 registered charities in the Southampton area, 168,000 in the whole country. 450 registered charities in the Southampton area, ranging from scout groups to the Mayflower Theatre Trust. One of the things that has struck me most since I became chairman of the Charity Commission is the extraordinary breadth of charitable organisations. And so many of them start life around someone's kitchen table. In fact, over half the 160,000 charities in this country have an income of less than 20,000 a year. So they really are kitchen table charities. Almost half of those have an income of less than 10,000 charities. And I think it's because charities are so valued by our society that they need protecting from the minority of individuals who threaten them, who can bring charities into disrepute. I must stress that it is a minority, because charities, I think, like William Beveridge, the founder of the welfare state, he described charity, and I agree with him, as a golden thread running through the living tapestry of our national history. We've already had a reminder from Sarah Whedon about the dangers of fraud to charities, and that is one of the principal dangers that the Commission under my leadership has been focusing on. We have 3 priorities: fraud, counter-terrorism, and the protection of vulnerable beneficiaries. That doesn't mean to say we don't look at other things as well, other potential abuse of charities, but those are the 3 that are our lead concerns. It's damaging for all charities when one case of abuse of any kind surfaces. Good reputations are hard to win, but are easily lost. And in an age when so many institutions have been rocked by scandal, charities should not take public support for granted. Public trust in charities is the oxygen that they need to succeed. The public will and the desire to give, volunteer, and contribute depends on that trust. Public trust in charities has, I'm glad to say, remained very high, but the public is now scrutinizing charities in far greater detail than they used to. For the first time, our research shows that how a charity spends its money has become the most important factor in driving public trust. That's now more important to people than whether a charity is making a positive difference to the cause they work for. That is rather an extraordinary change, I think. And it shows that transparency and accountability in charities is more important to the public than ever before. So how can charities keep public trust high? First, by filing their accounts with us on time. It's a little thing, and it sounds like a trivial thing, but it's not. As of today, there are 179 charities with incomes of over 1 million a year, which have been late in sending us their accounts and annual returns. You can see who they are if you want on our website. It's not a good thing. In fact, it's unacceptable because it stops the public knowing how a charity spends its money. Some of your fellow charities who were subject to a statutory inquiry for defaulting twice on filing their accounts have yet again defaulted and are now going back into inquiry. This really should not continue. It's very easy to file one's accounts on time, and all charities should really make every effort to do so. Trustees can also increase public trust by not falling foul of charity law. 220,000 trustees now get our quarterly newsletter to keep them abreast of any new guidance or developments in the law. If you don't already receive it, do sign up for it on our website. It contains important updates about guidance and useful case studies that help you understand how to avoid common problems. And charities must be ready to answer the public's questions. People want to know more about charities, and charities need to have clear answers. Where does your money go? How much is spent on fundraising and administration? Lots of people ask that all the time. What are your staff paid? How do I know that my donation is going to the end cause? Many of these questions are in fact answered on our online register of charities on our website. The register is in a way the shop window of the charity world. You can see who a charity's trustees are, and you can access their contact details. Our register is increasingly well used. Charity entries were viewed 6 million times last year. But we want people to use it even more. While giving to charities is often a decision made with the heart, we need people to give with their heads as well. That's why we are piloting a new search tool for our register. We want people to be informed givers. Please do have a look at this and give us your feedback as we continue to develop it. We hope it makes information about charities clearer. Well-run charities deserve an efficient and robust regulator, and that's what I want to create as the Commission's chairman. When I took over the organization in the end of 2012, we were assailed immediately with a series of problems, and I was hauled before Mrs. Hodge, whom I'm sure you've seen interrogate other people recently, not always in a kindly manner. And she criticized us very seriously for the shortcomings in the Charity Commission and unleashed the National Audit Office to write a report on us. Their first report that came out at the end of 2012 was not very, at the end of 2013, was not very flattering. I'm glad to say that a new report, second report done by the National Audit Office, which was published in January this year, was much more positive and said that we had made really good progress. And so I hope and believe that the bad days, could I possibly get a glass of water from, I had one over here, I think. Thank you very much. Thanks. Sorry about that. I hope that the bad days are behind us, but we cannot be complacent in any way. Although, as I say, the latest National Audit Office report was much more positive. They acknowledge that we've made much better use of our powers recently, and we do more investigations. The figures, I think, speak for themselves. In 2013-14, we opened 64 new investigations. The year before, it was only 15. Last year, we used our legal powers 790 times, compared to 216 times the year before. We're monitoring charities much more efficiently, where there are concerns, and we're using data better by exchanging our information much more frequently with other bodies, other regulators, such as HMRC. And I'm very pleased that the NAO has acknowledged these increased efforts that we have put in. But I know that we have to continue to work hard, and as I just said, we cannot afford to be complacent. Sometimes people say to me, you're just regulating fiercely now, you're having more investigations, and you're giving less support to charities and being less helpful to trustees. That certainly is not what we want to do. But it is true that our resources are very limited, and those limits prevent us from giving bespoke advice to charities as we used to be able to do. 5 years ago, we had a budget of £40 million a year. Now it's £21 million. That's quite a fall. Our staff has gone down from 500 people to just under 300 people. We've had to concentrate on our compliance work. But I do think, as I said before, that the whole sector gains when bad practice in a small number of charities is tackled and seen to be tackled by us. I think it's in every charity's interest that abuse of any sort is dealt with, which is why we've placed so much importance on this, emphasis. But we do that not at the expense of our permissions work. Every day we do help charities to merge, to change their purposes, to sell property or land, or to make other changes to achieve their aims. For example, at the end of last year, we were approached by the trustees of the Band-Aid Charitable Trust. You'll remember that the original song, Do They Know It's Christmas, recorded some 30 years ago, raised millions. The charity trustees thought they would have to establish a new charity in order to raise funds for a new version of the song to fight Ebola, as their charitable objects, their original charitable objects, were restricted to the relief of hunger and poverty in Ethiopia. But to save time, money, and unnecessary administration for the charity, we made a scheme that added an additional relief of sickness object for the charity, while ring-fencing the original property and any income arising from it for the original Ethiopian objectives. This was done in only 3 days, which I was very pleased to be able to do. We're constantly looking at ways in which red tape can be safely reduced or actions can be made simpler for charities. You may have seen that the Law Commission published a report last week. They made sensible suggestions that could help reduce red tape for charities, and we'll be looking at them in more detail. I would encourage you all to read it and to respond to their consultation. We're trying to do more to make running a charity easier ourselves. Your accountant can now submit your accounts directly to us online. We're working to make it easier for charitable companies to submit their accounts to us and to Companies House together. We're using social media to highlight our guidance. We absolutely want to support the vast majority of well-run charities on the limited resources that we have by being smarter about how we use them. I've also picked up frustrations from trustees quite often about trying to contact us by phone or in finding what they can need on our website. I know this is a serious problem. We simply don't have the resources to man the phones 24 hours a day, as in an ideal world we would like to, not even 12 hours a day, alas. Instead, we've introduced a callback system for people to request phone calls back at a time of their choosing. We're also looking at how we can make guidance easier to find on the website. That's already bearing fruit. Our essential trustee guidance now receives 20,000 viewings per month on gov.uk, which is what we had to move to. We had to move to the government's website. We weren't given any choice on that, compared to 7,000 views a month on our old website. But we do need your help consistently. Please fill in the online feedback form if you cannot find what you want, and we'll try and make it simpler. Sadly, as I said at the beginning, there's always a minority of people who wish to abuse charities, and that's terrible for the vast majority of trustees and charities that work well. Charity fraud is a sad reality. Charity trustees must not be naive to the risks that they face. and they need to do all that they can to protect their charities. We do provide guidance on our website to help, and we are encouraging larger charities to make use of a new free tool aimed at helping them assess their resistance against fraud. This is, I regret to say, it has a rather horrible name. It's called the Self-Assessment Fraud Resilience Tool. Nevertheless, it is effective, and it's based on 29 questions for charities to answer. It shows how well you can compare with other charities, and it's anonymous, and I would encourage you to use it. Charities face many risks, including risks to their good reputations and consequently that of all charities. We've recently seen this in the case of two charities that had in the past funded an organization which was not a charity called CAGE. CAGE describes itself as an advocacy group, and its director recently made quite reprehensible public statements about individuals thought to be linked to unspeakable acts of terror. He did so in a press conference broadcast live for an hour by the BBC and Sky News. You may have seen some of it yourselves. The statements made by CAGE and the adverse media coverage that followed raised for us very serious concerns that charitable funding for the CAGE risked undermining public trust in charity generally. We had been engaged with the two charities that had funded CAGE, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust and the Roddick Foundation, since December 2013. We'd scrutinized each charity's relationship with CAGE during this period, including analyzing whether their grants were appropriate and whether the trustees had ensured that these grants were used for exclusively charitable purposes in line with their own charity's objects. There were clear questions for a charity considering funding CAGE's activities as to how the trustees of these charities could comply with their legal duties as trustees. As a result of our intervention, both charities gave us assurances that they will never fund CAGE again. And we have reminded all trustees generally of their duties to undertake due diligence when making grants, especially perhaps to non-charitable organizations. As a result of this engagement with CAGE and its charitable funders, some people questioned whether it's for the Commission to decide what is in the public interest or what might damage trust and confidence in charities. Yes, it is for us to do that. We exist to regulate charities on behalf of the giving and the volunteering public. As I said earlier, public trust is absolutely vital to charities. If this is under threat in any way, we must act. But I do want to be clear, this case does not mean that charities cannot fund projects that are unpopular or controversial. Charities have a proud history of supporting difficult causes, such as helping asylum seekers, rehabilitating offenders, or promoting little-known causes. But we do expect trustees to manage the duties of care and diligence to such work. We will be updating our guidance for trustees on this matter. There's another recent case I'd like to mention to you, which shows that charities, the charitable sector and the work of the Charity Commission is never far from the headlines. This is the case of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, or the Exclusive Brethren, as they are sometimes called. The Times newspaper in the last week raised questions about the nature of some of the church's practices, its schools, and its tax affairs. The Times also implied that the Commission was lent on by politicians to register the Preston Down Trust, a Plymouth Brethren meeting hall. They did indeed have a lot of parliamentary support, but we made sure that the group had to go through a robust process for also almost a year and to make changes to its governing documents and behavior before we would agree to register them as a charity. All of that resulted in the Preston Down Trust acknowledging for the first time past mistakes and agreeing to revise its governing documents by entering into a deed of variation. This required the trustees to set out in detail their core religious doctrines and practices in the context of Christian compassion. The Commission's decision was published in detail, and it's on our website. It's a very interesting case, I think. But anyone with concerns about our registration of the Brethren could have appealed our decision to the Charity Tribunal. In fact, at the time, the Commission's approach was welcomed on both sides, including by members of Parliament who had taken up the cause of critics of the Brethren. A year on from registering the Preston Down Hall, we're now currently conducting a review into it, which we will publish. If we find anything that brings the good name of charity into disrepute, or if we find that the Preston Down Trust has not met the obligations to which they signed up to when we gave them charitable status, we will, of course, act. I think these two cases demonstrate in some way the enormous variety of charities. And that's the thing that comes to me most clearly every day, practically, or several times a week. A new charitable issue lands on my desk, and we have to discuss with our lawyers in particular how we best deal with it. And they can be about a tiny charity, can be about a huge charity. And it's absolutely fascinating the extent, as I said at the beginning, to which charitable activity permeates in a wonderful way every aspect of our society. And I think that as I said before, whatever the size of charities, whatever the nature of charities, we have to regulate them all. We have to speak to them about a whole wide range of topics. So the way we speak to charities and their trustees varies according to the message we're trying to give them. Some have said that this raises concerns about the consistency of the Commission's voice. I don't think that's true. It's still the same Commission, whether we have to deal with serious abuses as we see them, or whether we have to help smaller charities, or any size of charities, to regulate their affairs more effectively, or if we have to help them change their purposes, or whatever. The Commission is there for the same purpose, to protect public confidence in the whole of the charitable world. I understand, and I'm anxious that we keep on listening to charities, but we must balance that against our role as the regulator of all charities on behalf of the public. None of us can lose sight of our central role in this. And as I said, it's a fantastically interesting job, and I'm very lucky to have been given it, and I'm enjoying it very much, and I hope I could say the same to you after another 3 years. Thank you very much indeed.